I am really, really excited to kick off our session here today with Aaron, and we've got Beth. I'm gonna get to Aaron in a minute, but first of all, super grateful for everyone showing up. We had incredible interest in this event, and we've got lots and lots of people that are going to be attending, and so grateful to have all of you. Please tell us who you are, tell us where you're from and what you're working on in the chat. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better, especially as we get started here.
I'm glad you asked, Derek. It is my pleasure. We didn't script that. It's my pleasure to come on screen for a few short moments to talk about a very exciting event that is coming up in only a few short weeks. CMX Summit 2024. This year, we are celebrating 10 years of CMX. Our summit, our events, our resources, and our community have been around for 10 years. And to celebrate this huge milestone, CMX Summit is looking a little different this year. Katie, we can't wait to meet you either. First, this year, we've decided to include the coveted workshop day in a regular ticket. So with one ticket, you get access to all of our sessions on April 25th and our workshops on April 26th. We've also doubled the number of workshops we're offering to give you even more opportunities to get deep with our topics and work with your peers and your fellow CMXers to learn. We've just announced the agenda. We have over 30 speakers joining our stage to share their experiences and their knowledge with you. This year, all of our sessions are going to take on a more discussion group vibe. We heard your feedback that this is your favorite kind of session, so we've incorporated this change. We have sessions about customer communities, about product communities, about acquisition communities, and you'll hear about automating and integrating and working with AI. We'll discuss proving business value, choosing important metrics, scaling community programs. You heard it, Katie, developer programs. Oh my goodness, everything. I'm confident we have something for everyone. Thank you for having me and for listening to my very enthusiastic spiel. I am so excited for CMX Summit this year, and I can't wait to see you there. In fact, I'm so hopeful that you'll join me that we'd like to give you a very special opportunity. To thank you for joining us today, I'm going to extend a 20% discount. You heard it here first. A 20% discount on our regular and our anniversary special tickets. Luca just dropped the link in the chat. This offer is only good until midnight on Friday, March 29th. So don't wait. I'm so excited to see you there. Thanks for having me. Aaron, Derek, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. Can I give one other shout out around CMX Summit?
You can.
Really hope everyone's coming. Please come. If you have anything to do with the startup world, the day before the summit is the conference for a community that I helped create called Startup Grind. And we have all of the amazing startups building AI and AI tools. So if you want to learn more about AI, that's a great place to come start. We've also got some AI sessions at CMX, but you can come see and learn about all the new tools that startups are launching and hear what people are saying and just see what people are creating. We'll have like 200 startups exhibiting there. So if you would like to come to that, hit me up. I'll get you a ticket for it if you're coming to CMX. We'd love to see you at both. And it's the first time we're doing them together. So it's going to be a little bit of an experiment, but we're excited to have them. So we'll see you there in a few weeks. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to get to the main event and to introduce my friend Aaron. Aaron is part of the Aaron has been in the community industry for a really long time. He's an OG at this point of community. He currently is on Procore.
I'll take it.
Team. I mean it with the most reverence and respect possible. He was also on the Square community team. He also worked at Autodesk as well, and an illustrious, he's been a founder, which, I always have a lot of respect for, because we know how hard that is, and how, you got to be really a crazy person to ever start a company. So he gets a lot of street cred there. University of California, Davis alum, very difficult school to get into, might I just add. Very, very cool school outside of Sacramento. Aaron, thank you for being here. Yeah, we're really excited. We've got an incredible group here to listen to you. We're going to start actually with you sharing some insights, this is a little bit new for these. We do these every month. And you've been kind enough to start with sharing a few of the things that you've learned and just talking. And then I think we've got Q&A here as well in the bottom. You can jump in, and any questions you have for Aaron, please ask. We'd love for you to come up on stage and ask them. So, get those ready, get your hair and makeup, ready to go. If you don't want to come up, that's okay too, but we'd love to see you and hear your voice. And you can ask him yourself. But Aaron, thank you for being here.
Derek, I am so thrilled to be here. And I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm using my new podcaster microphone. It should sound nice and clear. Okay, I'm getting thumbs up. That's fantastic. Derek, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that you have my LinkedIn pulled up while you gave that intro. Is that a possibility?
I'm talking your LinkedIn today. Yeah, absolutely. But I knew most of that. I knew most of those things. I didn't need to go to LinkedIn.
Well, I am so thrilled to be here. And as Derek mentioned, I wanted to come in today with a little bit of content. I have a template that I'm going to share, because when I talk about tripling event attendance, my goal is to make this session as useful as possible for everyone on this call. And so the first thing that I wanted to ask is, I know sometimes you hop into these meetings, like hop onto a webinar, and there can be a temptation to dive directly into Slack or go into that next email that you need to write. So I wanted to put out an ask at the start of the call for those of you that are up for it. And if you're not, I 100% respect it. I still appreciate the heck out of you being here. But I wanted to ask those that joined today to go full screen, think of a question you want to ask, to hop on, raise your hand, and jump on video and join Derek and I on this call. And with that, I will dive into a presentation to talk about my tactics. Really just one key tactic that I want to share with all of you. Hopefully it will work well for you, and hopefully it will be something that you can apply right away. As far as what we'll talk about today, first things first, I'm going to do a quick intro to myself. I think that Derek may have stolen my thunder a little bit, because he seems to know everything about me. From there, I'm going to outline the content that I'll cover in the context of this presentation. I'm then going to talk about my number one tactics for growing event attendance, and that is what I like to call promo docs. So I chose to focus this presentation on a specific tactic, as I don't see it used a ton, and I think it can be very, very helpful and very, very practical. Promo docs in various iterations and formats have been a huge part of my success in my current role and throughout my entire career. So I'm going to share a promo doc template that you can use and talk about how they work. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the idea of asking for help in general in the world of community, because as community managers, I think we're all familiar with this. We all have to ask for help a lot. It might actually be like the core function of our jobs, is asking people to participate. Lastly, we're going to wrap up with Q&A. And again, we'll encourage you to come off of mute and hop on. And then we will talk about anything that y'all are interested in from this presentation, about community meetings, about generating RSVPs, or about community management in general. And then we'll wrap up. So to share a little bit more about myself, as Derek mentioned, I was a community manager and eventually a team lead at Autodesk. If you have not been to Autodesk's forums, give them a quick Google search. You can do that while we're on the call. That doesn't count as stepping away and checking out something else. Go take a look at Autodesk forums. They are absolutely huge. They are some of the oldest forums, not just in the world of community, but on the web in general. From Autodesk, I moved on to Square to help grow and evolve their seller community. I got to lead an incredible team there for 2 years as we worked to empower small business owners all over the world to compete in a modern economic landscape that is totally dominated by corporations. A little bit more about some life stuff. I got married in October to my amazing wife, Christina. I'm a huge basketball person. I'm actually hosting a tournament this weekend to raise money for my local community center and gym. I'm very stoked about that. If you live near Marin County in Northern California, come on out to Valley Hoop Fest. Drop me a note on LinkedIn. I'll share the info with you. And I'm also a big time photographer. I don't know if there are any photographers in the chat, but my new favorite camera is my Instax Mini 90, which automatically prints photos on film as soon as you take the shot. And it has an automatic light sensor, so you get perfect pictures printed instantly every time. Okay, now I'm going to share a little bit about the context for this presentation. The first thing that I want to make sure I mention again is that I'm so insanely honored to be here presenting to all of you. Derek, thank you for the shout out to me as an OG of the community industry. I've definitely been around for a while. I'm seeing lots of names I recognize in the chat. So I'm grateful to each and every one of you on this call for joining. It really, truly means the world to me to have you here. Secondly, I'm hoping to make this a super interactive session. And I feel a little bit like I'm preaching to the choir because the chat has been absolutely incredible so far. I love it when I can't read stuff that's happening in the chat because there are so many people responding. So I hope to keep everybody engaged. So I will be posing 3 questions throughout this presentation that I'm hoping everyone in the chat can answer when prompted. And that will be on my next slide, the first question. And then lastly, I want to talk about the real value of this presentation. And that's going to be the combined knowledge of all of the folks in community on this call. So I would love to continue hearing from all of y'all. If you have thoughts about things that I'm sharing, if you disagree, please let me know. If you agree, definitely let me know. But that brings me to the first question that I have for all of you in the chat. It's just wanted to ask you in 3 words, how do you promote your events today? If you do want to use more than 3 words, that is definitely okay. I will mention that promo docs are not the only tactics that I use. All right, I'm seeing lots of awesome answers in here. Hannah doing photos, post a newsletter. Kristen, publishing note. Yep, publishing community is definitely huge. Luca, you and I were collaborating on some LinkedIn posts this week. That was awesome. Hello, Rob G in Toronto. Great to have you in here. Yep, LinkedIn is definitely a great network for this. Everett, it's cool to see that you're doing Discord. That's awesome. Newsletters are definitely a big deal. So lots of really, really cool answers in here. Cool. Okay. Well, it's spectacular to see what everyone's leveraging. And if there's more that y'all want to share, we'll encourage you to drop notes about your best practices there. But now I want to get into the kind of meat and potatoes of this presentation, which is to talk about promo docs. As I mentioned, these have been our #1 tactic for growing event RSVPs and community meeting chapters. So in short, a promo doc is a set of instructions and copy that empower anyone to help promote your event. One of the things I love about them is that they are easy to templatize and repeat, so you can use them at scale across multiple events. And they're also easy to make edits to if you want to update content or links. Let's break it down. I'm going to talk to you all about the anatomy of what makes up one of these promo docs. My first recommendation is when you're creating one of these documents in Google Doc is to include an image at the top. I'm a huge fan of adding small touches like this to just kind of improve the look and feel of an experience or a page or a post. Screenshot from your community, any banner image you're using anywhere, any branding from your organization can make a really, really huge difference. Up next, I always recommend adding a personal greeting and introduction. Saying hello is really meaningful. It allows you to formulate your ask in the promo doc as a human being and not as a templated document. I like to add a waving emoji. Just makes it that much more clear that this is the place to start reading. And then I also always include a TLDR. So into this here's what to do section, I submit the instruction to view the event page. And all of the time when I'm sending these docs out to folks and asking them to help promote, they're almost always going to be part of my target audience for the event. So it's a great way to drive more people to the event just by having them visit your promotion doc. I also instruct them that they can use the copy below or modify it or write their own to invite their network to attend. So that's the TLDR of what I'm asking people to do when they visit one of these pages. Moving on a little bit, I highlight multiple ways that people can promote the event. So in the case of this event for Bevy, when I created this promo document, the easiest, fastest way for people to share was to take Bevy's recent post on LinkedIn about the post and repost it. It was a 3-click process. You click the link here, you click the repost button on LinkedIn, and then you click publish to your own feed. So it was a really fast way for people to share out about the event. And then I also always like to write social content for people to post to any other platform that they might be interested in here. Really, the biggest benefit here is that you're making an ask of someone to help you promote your event, and you're taking a lot of the thought process required for them to help out of that process. So it should be very, very easy to leverage the content in your promo doc to promote your event. So this last section may be the most important. This is where I put some content and contexts for asking folks to send direct invites one-to-one to individuals. So this is copy that can be used in an email, in a LinkedIn DM, or any platform where you're inviting people directly. And we believe that having others send a personal invite to their network to be the highest possible rate of conversion to someone who RSVPs for that meeting, someone who becomes an attendee for that meeting, or someone who becomes a chapter member. So for that reason, I always recommend pointing out that direct email is the best tool and the tool that we're hoping that people will use. And then I include copy that makes it easy for them to send that email. And of course, I always say thank you at the end of every promo doc. I also wanted to make sure that, Angie, if you do have that link, you can take a moment to share a link to the template of this promo doc. My hope is that this template will be useful for you. So you can make a copy of this document, sub in your own information, sub in your own images. On the version that Angie has there, I added comments that give a little bit of instructions on how to do it. And yes, Brendan, we definitely keep it simple. That is a huge part of the functionality of these promo docs. And what you'll see, especially on the top of this one, is that I'm not necessarily including all of the info about the event on this page. I did add some details below, but you can drive folks to the RSVP page to learn about the event. You don't have to include it in the promo doc, and it helps you keep it simple and templatized. So I want to talk a little bit about the who, where, and why of using these documents. So first off, who. I mentioned, and this is for those of us at technology companies that are working with customer success managers. I know this won't be a fit for everyone, but working with CSMs, we find that they are the best possible audience for our promo docs, especially for our work at Procore. CSMs have strong relationships with their audience and are always looking to share opportunities for their customers to connect with their community at large, to learn more about products. So sharing a promo doc with the CSM is a great way to get lots of individual invites sent directly to your target audience, if that is the structure of your company. I know that may not work for everyone, but that's what's been working for us at Procore. They're also a great resource to share with meeting leaders. This is something that Tess, who's in the chat, and I need to do a little bit more of. So Nate and Rob will make sure to get these sent over to you. Meeting leaders can use the content to promote their own meetings more easily. They can share the promo doc itself with their audience and encourage their audience to promote the event as well. And then we also encourage you to share promo docs with influencers or really thought leaders. It might be a little intimidating to reach out to someone who's a very big name in your space. However, folks that are influential in different topics or areas of thought leadership are often looking for content that is relevant to them to share, and they have access to an incredible network. You can also share your promo doc to attendees. You can even link to it on your event page if you want to get really meta. And that way you can say, want to help grow this event? Click here to see the best way to do so. And you can make it really easy for people to invite others. Next up, I want to talk about the where. So a lot of these are practices that y'all mentioned for promoting your events as is. So these are also great channels for promoting your tool more broadly. So we definitely send a lot of promo docs over Slack. Tess and I send direct messages, probably hundreds potentially each week, to folks around the business that we know will be a good fit to promote our events. We send them a direct message, one-to-one, asking, hey, Do you think you'd be open to sharing out about this event? We think that you'd be a great person to do so. We think your network would be really interested in this. And oh, by the way, here's an easy 1, 2, 3 step, instant copy paste. You're done. You just did a huge favor for me. You did a huge favor for your network too. Really love that my fireworks came on for that one. Email is also a great channel. LinkedIn is also a spectacular channel to share these. I sent a few LinkedIn DMs out with a link to my promo doc for this event. And then publishing to your forums and community is also a really great way to get promo docs out there in the world. Lastly, I want to cover the why. The first thing that I've said at the start of this call is that direct one-to-one invites are the most effective way to drive RSVPs. So personal invites produce. Getting an invitation from someone you know, someone you trust, is a really, really huge factor in being able to grow your event. There's also a virality potential with events sharing promo docs. When you share a promo doc, you have the opportunity not only to get RSVPs from the people that you target, but also to access all of their networks. So you can experience exponential or viral growth. Additionally, these docs are super, super easy to repeat. By keeping the content simple, they are very easy to use for multiple events, and they scale easily. Additionally, if you use Google Suite or Coda or another digital doc option, promo docs can be edited anytime with updated information. That also helps if you make a typo, which I personally have never done. But if it were to happen, then I would have the opportunity to go in and fix it. So this brings me to my next question, and I hope y'all will hop in the chat and share. But I wanted to ask you, do you think promo docs will work for your events? And if you say no, that is totally fine. If you think yes, I'm stoked and I'm glad that it will be helpful. I'm seeing lots of yes. I'm seeing worth trying. I'm glad that it'll be helpful. No is okay. And I'd be really interested to know about no, because I know it won't be a fit for every single community. I'm seeing lots and lots of positive response in here. This is actually more than I was expecting folks to say yes. So I'm very glad it's going to be helpful for y'all. Even if it's only helpful for a couple, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be perfect for every event. And yeah, we use these for both virtual and in-person events. And Lakeisha, when you finish your Notion template, please do send it my way, because I am curious to get deeper into leveraging Notion myself. So that was the meat and potatoes of the content for my presentation, but I have one more section that I want to talk about before we pivot to Q&A. And that is talking about asking for help. Asking for help is something that I think applies across community management and event work in general. You have to ask people for help. You have to ask them to come to your event. If you're me, you have to ask them for help in promoting your event. And asking for help a lot can be really challenging. It can be emotionally exhausting. And speaking personally, I have a hard time asking others for help in general, especially when it is to promote something that I am working on. So I wanted to break down a few things that I try to keep in mind when asking for help with my promo docs, my other work, or my personal life. And just so y'all know, I may be just speaking these out loud to kind of manifest them for myself, but I hope that they're helpful for you too. The first note that I want to make is that when you ask someone for help, your ask for help may help them reach their goals. Since you are reaching out to individuals to whom your ask is going to be relevant, it is highly likely to add value to their lives and value up to the communities that they belong to. People like myself derive joy from helping others. I think that's why a lot of us are in community. That's why a lot of us put on events in general. So connecting others to events or content that will be meaningful to them, bringing that forward with a clear and kind and genuine ask, creates an opportunity for them to more easily tap into that experience of helping others. And it helps you. Helping yourself is helpful too. You also have to bear in mind that your ask will create a better event for all. The event that you're promoting will be more meaningful if it has a stronger audience, whether that's a bigger audience or whether that's an audience that's just more highly concentrated with people that care about the content that you're sharing. Attending an event may change the lives of anyone who comes in to join, be it a virtual event, be it an in-person event. Being too afraid or unwilling to ask could stand in the way of someone having an experience that changes their life forever, of meeting that person who's going to get them their new job, of learning about a technology that's going to totally change the way that they approach their day-to-day life. Lakeisha, I know that's true for a lot of people that use Notion. So You shouldn't let your fear of asking for help get in the way of changing lives for others. And then lastly, you have the opportunity to pay it forward. In these situations where you are asking for the support of others, do not forget to support. This doesn't mean that you need to take every sales call that you're contacted about, or that you need to drop everything and join the Peace Corps, move across the country, although both of those could definitely be helpful things to do. Being the change that you want to see in the world will enable you to bring back more good outcomes for yourself and your community in the long term. And so that brings me to my next and final question for the group for this presentation portion of the call, which is, why do you run your events? Jeremy, that's so epic. So you already got your Peace Corps box checked off. I love that. So yeah, talking about why running events, I think y'all just got a little bit of it for me. Yep, Abdul, I love impacting your community. Stacy, customer engagement is really, really solid there. Derek, you're popping back on camera. Why did you start Startup Grind?
I started hosting events just to solve my own problem. Honestly, just was sort of the magic of it was just it was never supposed to be a big thing. I think a lot of the best things that get created don't have a lot of pressure in the beginning. It's just, hey, this could be fun. This could be, this is something that helps me solve your own problem. And, maybe it turns into something, maybe it doesn't. And in that case, it turned out there were other people that had the same problem.
Yep. That's kind of the magic there. Mark, I love that you're mentioning using or enabling customers to use product better and eventually renew. Definitely product adoption and retention are huge reasons to run events. Molly, I love that you're working on golf training facilities and helping people get better at their game. I love that. I probably need to come to some of your events. I'm a terrible golfer. Carol, interesting to learn about your sale experiences there. Would love to hear more about that as well. And so with all of those answers, thank you everyone for hopping in the chat to participate. It is now time to move to our Q&A portion.
Great. Thank you. That was super insightful. I have many of my own questions, and I'm going to kind of weave in a few different people here as we get started. But the first thing I wanted to ask you about is just time. How much time do you think you need in advance to promote an event? Do you have any sort of opinions on that? I have some thoughts on it too, but I'd love to start with you.
I'm curious to hear your answer. And as always, I'm curious to hear folks' thoughts in the chat, because again, my perspective is going to be just one thing. It's going to be just one item that's relevant to my program specifically. So for us, we like to make sure our events are online at least 6 weeks ahead of time, with a minimum of 4 weeks ahead of time. We've definitely stood up events on a shorter timeline, be those virtual, be those in person. Sometimes I actually think it's better to market events with less time ahead, so people don't have so much time to think about the decision of whether they're going to go or not. I actually published this to folks like Nate, who just published, Nate Belcher in the chat. I published this to my community meeting leaders just yesterday with a quick email that went out to them, and a lot of them have shown up. So I'm stoked to see so many of Procore's community meeting leaders here in the chat. But yeah, 4 to 6 weeks is our range. What's your answer to this question, Derek?
Yeah, I think that's a great gauge. I would say at minimum 3 weeks. And sometimes, you get busy and it can be hard. I just want to pull up this example of one of my favorite event organizers, community leaders. This is Guillermo in Guayaquil, Ecuador. And you can just see, this guy is so prepared. He plans the whole year out in advance, and he publishes not everything a year in advance, but a lot of it. And, if I'm wanting to be engaged in this, I can kind of see what's coming, and I can kind of see, hey, this is something that I may not want to be a part of this one, but I may want to be a part of this one. Or, there's just this really, community's cadence is something that I sort of have said for a long time, or felt for a long time. And with events, really showing that you're going to be there and showing ahead where you're going to be and coming from, you just, I know I've seen people, sharing events literally days before it happens. So I think 4 to 6 weeks is a great benchmark, minimum 3.
Yeah. We would love to encourage our leaders, and Rob and Nate, I know I saw you on the call. So this is a note that Tess and I will have for you, is we would love to have them publishing events, having at least one more event after the event that's happened most recently. And that's a hurdle that we're trying to get across. So if y'all have best practices for helping get more chapters to publish those events ahead of the completion of their current event, we'd be interested to know how that's working for y'all.
Love to talk about you mentioned this, and I think it bears repeating, and that's just around basically building a coalition of people that are going to be excited and actively talking about what you're doing. And I think you mentioned a couple of things that really struck me. One is you talked about a lot of things that were really personal in nature, sort of one-to-one messaging, one-to-one outreach. It's not scalable. And that's sort of the point. There's this famous startup adage, like in the beginning, you do things that don't scale. And I think like community too is so much of like that sort of one-to-one connection that people feel. And it's not gonna be the brand, it's gonna be you, right? As the person organizing it. So I like, I don't know, have you always done that? Have you like, it sounds like a lot of work, honestly. But why do you still do it even though it's tedious and unscalable?
Yeah, I'll lead into this with a little story. So when I finished college, I started sending emails to startups I thought were interesting. And eventually one replied back to me. And I basically just said like, hey, I have marketing ideas for you. And that was how I got my first job at a startup called MindSumo, where we hosted online mini internships for college students. So what I did was start cold calling and then also sending emails directly to anyone who was a dean at a college or a professor or an academic advisor or worked at a career center. And I just pounded the ground, building relationships one-to-one with people, either via email, making jokes about the weather, or by getting on the phone with someone. And so I was a little bit in the sales role, but the purpose of that role was to ask these people at these colleges to distribute information about our startups projects to students. And that was how I grew our user base of students from 3,000 to 50,000 in the first year that I was working at that startup. So experienced some really tremendous user growth. So I will mention that this is not a perfect, totally scalable tactic. I don't know if this is the tactic to get you from 150,000 to 1 million. But it is a great way to get more people in the front door at events individually. There are ways to make it scale by making it templated and making it easier to use. And I'll also mention that Tess and I are definitely out there in the trenches, pounding the ground, sending out one-to-one messages, especially to our customer success managers at Procore, who we love so much. And it's worth it to put in that level of effort into work when you know it produces results. So if you're doing something that is creating growth, sometimes you got to just keep going and doing that work, even if it's not the most perfect scalable option.
Katie Hines, would love for you to introduce yourself to the group and fire away at your question if you want to come off mute.
Yeah, hi. I'm Katie. I've been in community management forever, since basically the late 90s when gaming on the internet became a thing. And I had a question for Aaron. My question is, what percentage of RSVPs versus actual attendees is considered successful for a virtual workshop webinar style event?
So I think for a virtual workshop, that's something where people are going to be a little more involved and engaged. For virtual events, I would say that 50% is our goal. If you break 50%, that is a solid showing, because signing up for a virtual event is a much lower level of commitment. For our in-person, I would say that 65% is where we like to get our RSVPs to. Obviously, things can always happen on the day of, but those are the metrics that we keep kind of for virtual 50 and for in-person 65. Again, curious in the chat if people want to share, what are your metrics for a successful virtual event? What are your metrics for a successful in-person event? My answers are only my own, and hearing from all of y'all, this is where we're going to get that opportunity to learn from each other and really see like what are the standard metrics across all of our programs, because those are the sort of things that are difficult to measure unless you have the opportunity to have 100 community managers and event producers in a room.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think I echo that. I think a 30% show rate on a virtual event is pretty normal. I think that's sort of what I would expect. I would say, as an example of this event, and literally, Aaron, you helped us triple attendance to this event. We had about, it sounds kind of cliche, but it actually is true. We had about 240 people RSVP, which is about triple what we usually have. And you see, we've had upwards of 100 people, coming in and out of the event. So, we're somewhere around that like 30, 35, 40% range, which is great. It's fantastic. And, and look, like, I think part of the event is not just who's there. You record it, you share it, you cut it up, and share it online, and send out the transcript after and that sort of thing. And like, it can, you've got the 100 people that will watch this today, and then we've got the hopefully thousands of people that will watch it over the next, 4 or 5 years.
That's how you scale. Derek, you raised a really good point here, which is that our populations for our events are generally lower. So we're still a relatively young community meeting program. We've been around for 3 years. Typical attendance is mostly in the 30, 40, 50 in person. Our largest virtual event had, I think, 180 RSVPs. So since we're a smaller audience, we're likely reaching people more directly. Hi, Lakeisha.
Hi. I feel like we met last year at CMX, but I'm Lakeisha. I am a director at Startup Grind, but I also work for Bevy, so I get to work with wonderful customers like you. So this is all about Startup Grind. My questions, I'm just going to combine them. So for the promo doc, how do you make it not feel spammy when you're sending it out? And then do you think it would also work for like paid events? And if so, do you incentivize within the doc if the event is paid?
Those are two great questions. So I'll start with the first one, which is how do we make it not feel spammy? And again, to a certain extent, this is the not scalable part, is sending these docs out one-to-one are the best way to get people to convert. And to a certain extent, it is going to feel a little spammy. I think that's potentially the nature of doing business. And that's why I mentioned those 3 tenets of asking for help, is because you are trying to do something that's really important. And in order to be successful in growing your events and growing your community and making a difference in people's lives, you are going to have to make some asks. So trying to feel comfortable with pushing that ask out there frankly, I think for everyone, it's going to be a constant internal battle when you're trying to do this sort of promotion. But you have to hold on to your mission, and it will feel a little spammy sometimes. But then remember, you're helping the person that you're messaging by giving them an opportunity to help you, to help promote the community, and you're helping grow your community event yourself. I have not, to get to your second part of your question, Lakeisha, which was about paid events and incentives, I had not given that much consideration because all of our events are free. Derek, I would be interested to hear your take on this from a Startup Grind perspective, because it sounds like something that could be very effective for driving growth.
Yeah, I think with paid events, you can, one of the big things you can open up is ads. Or if you've got a really important product release or something, sometimes you can get extra budget to run ads and drive people in, or to do referrals and do all those things. It's definitely it's a different game. We have our conference in a few weeks, and we're selling tickets for that. The biggest thing I would say is like, you nail it and then you scale it. It's the same thing with sort of doing things that are unscalable. Ads, I've been a part of so many terrible ad campaigns that, if it doesn't work at $100, it's not going to work at 1,000 or 10,000 or 30,000. And I have made all of those mistakes. So like, it's really about starting small, seeing what works. Kind of like, it's very tedious, but if it works, it's incredible, because it's like, you're just, you spend $500 and you make $600, or you make $1,000, or whatever that ratio is. But it's really, I think for us, like, we start with $15 campaigns, $20 campaigns, and test and test and test and test. And that's really the best way, I think, to use ads. And that can drive attendance. Referrals, again, with the right people, with the right audience, that can help. I don't think, and it's changed over time. It's different now than it was in 2012, and it's different than it was in 2015. I think people are still trying to decide if they want to go to live experiences. They're still like, there's that, oh, I got to get up. I mean, we see that with our own in-person events, probably every event, right? And paying is that next step, but also people that pay are more committed. So at Startup Grind, we used to charge $5 to get in, or $10 to get in, just to push people to come. And I've heard of people that charge for events and then just give the money back at the door, which is kind of a creative way to say, hey, I don't actually want your money. I just want you to come. And so there's probably bunch of different things to try there. Let's jump to Trisha. Go ahead, come off mute and tell us who you are and ask away.
Okay, so I'm Trisha. Most of my career started in the 3D printing space, but now I'm working for an alternative education company. So it's big in certain geographical areas where you can use state funding to send your kid to these schools, so parents can use government funding to pay for it. So I guess that is something that I've now come across that I haven't had to deal with in my previous roles, because I've been global companies. We just turned Google Ads back on, which has led to a lot of like top of funnel people coming in, which is great, because with events, I was noticing that was a big issue. But I feel like my biggest issue now is I've been using influencers to market. Some influencers I feel like are obviously better than others. But my biggest issue with events is I feel like these influencers are a high lift. Like, they need a lot of hand holding, a lot of content deliverables. And then when they're promoting on like Instagram, for example, if they do a story, they can link it there. But if they do something like a reel, it's not a clickable link. So getting people to convert, to take that extra step, has been really difficult. I've been told whitelisting is something I should try, where we leverage their handle and get more data that way. I haven't tried it yet. But I was wondering if you had any advice with using influencers for event promotions. I feel like if we provide content, then every influencer, it doesn't look authentic. So that's what I'm struggling with, is like having it look authentic, not like everyone's posting the same thing, but it also being good. Sometimes when I don't provide it, it's just not good,
Trisha, can I just ask, your conversion is someone signing up for the alternative schooling, or it's someone RSVPing for an event that y'all are putting together?
Is to start with the event.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a really great question. And just to confirm, what's your best practices for working with influencers on event promotion?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one where it's such an interesting challenge because the more that you scale, like the bigger the audience of that influencer and the bigger audience that they have in general, you're maybe going to lose some of that like personal touch that I've been talking about, like that actual human to human connection. When they share your content out to that audience, they might also not be as close to your audience. So one other tactic might be to try and go smaller. This is where I think the promo docs could be an interesting tool. Send it to the people who are attending your events that are really passionate about it instead of going at the highest level for those really big picture influencers. You have the opportunity to turn your most passionate customers, your most engaged advocates of your brand as it stands today, into smaller scale influencers. But Derek, I saw your hand just popped up, so I would imagine you have something to weigh in here as well.
No, I'm just playing around with the tool. I'm just bringing people on and off stage. Sorry.
Trisha, that's a really, really solid question. Something that's worked really well for me when I've been reaching out to influencers is actually going in, looking at who's following them and kind of making my way down the like giant spider web graph chart, org chart of influencer followings and finding my target audience more directly by uncovering them in the following of that influencer. So if it's someone who is promoting something that's similar to the thing that I'm trying to promote, there's a huge chunk of their audience that's going to be relevant to me. And maybe the best way to reach them isn't through that influencer, it's by going directly to them and making them feel a little bit more seen and heard. So that's my recommendation there. I hope it's helpful.
And what would you say to promote it strictly through Instagram stories?
Yeah, so social for sharing, in my experience, is not always the strongest path to directly convert because of exactly what you were just explaining, which is that it's hard to link out. Platforms don't want you to leave your current platform. So that's why I always recommend using DMs and using platforms like LinkedIn where you can share content directly. Social can be a great way to amplify your message, but if you're trying to convert to RSVPs, you want to drive people to your landing page directly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. Great question.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was super interesting. Susan from TechSoup mentioned creating a speaker kit. And I think that's such a great idea. And, look, like if you just make it easy, I think, well, first I would say this, like one of the best ways to get people to come to your events is to just make sure you're creating really great content. Like you got to start there. Create something amazing, something that, I mean, for me, like, and I've done 100 interviews at Startup Grind. I just refuse to interview someone I'm not really interested in interviewing. And that's a little bit selfish, but I know that like, if I'm not interested, why should I expect someone else to be interested? And so like, I've got to be genuinely interested in talking to that person or I can't bring them on the stage. So like start with great content. And then once you get great content, like, yeah, make it really easy for that person who's participating or the people that are participating to share it so that you can tap into their existing audience.
While Derek is finagling here, I am dropping my LinkedIn into the chat. For anyone else that is trying to expand your network of events and community professionals, please also drop your LinkedIn into the chat. I would love to connect with you. And we can use this as an opportunity where I have each other to make some connections. What's up, Juan?
Hi, Aaron. Amazing conference today. Love about events we have here in South America. We try to grow the community industry in Latin, in Spanish. Then I want to ask you, what do you think about the monthly, weekly events? What we must to have like OJs or create an habit or routine in these events that is weekly or monthly?
That is a spectacular question, Juan. Y pienso que es muy importante hacer eventos. I hit the limit of my Spanish. I can get a little tiny bit out there, but it is very important to keep your events on routine. Knowing that there is going to be another event coming is a huge factor when it comes to keeping people consistently engaged over time. if you want to experience growth for your meeting chapter, you need the same people to come back again. And I mean, my morning routine is I wake up and I make a cup of chai, and it is very comforting and calming to me to know that I will be able to go back to my water boiler and do that again every single morning. The same thing goes for the events that are happening at scale. We try and keep our events once a quarter. For our community, we find that to be a great balance of not having the event too often and getting people burned out, but also having them regularly enough that people are getting meaning, fostering a sense of community over time. We let people do them as often as once a month if they would like. They could definitely do more if they wanted to do more, but I really love once a quarter. I also really love how many LinkedIn profiles are in the chat. This is awesome. We're building a whole new network of event managers here. And I would also loving everything right now to hear Derek's perspective on regularity of events.
Yeah, I think I'm personally super biased towards monthly. I think that's like the minimum to really like feel like it's this regular thing, but I've definitely seen it work quarterly. Weekly, you got to be a boss to host weekly events. That's a lot of work, and it's you know, you don't want to drain yourself out, and so. But I think it can all work, and I think communicating that clearly up front of what you're going to do and what people should expect, and just be authentic to what you think is going to be the best sort of cadence for that. Dion, I don't know if you can come up and ask it. If not, I can definitely take it. But you had a great question in the chat. Feel free to jump in if you'd like to.
I'm trying to remember what I wrote.
That's some really good stuff. I'm trying to remember too.
Yeah, no, it's always about metrics, guys. It's like, I know why it's important, and the marketing team knows why it's important. But in order for us to figure out how we do this again, and if in another region or whatever, I want us to have our exact summary as outcomes or metrics that we're tracking, right? And I heard a lot of like really great ones. Those are hard metrics on like the RSVP to the attendee rate, right? We can get good about that, and even the engagement of your promos. But is there anything that you might suggest that might get us to like a quality check? Beyond say just an event CSAT of like, how did we do today, right? I'm talking about long tail impact, right? Is there an adoption kind of thing? Is there an NPS that you should be looking at? Is there, just to get people thinking about that. Not that those are hard metrics that we have to like have on a dashboard, but something that might get a little bit more buy-in as well from other folks, because the IRL versus why don't we just do a bunch of virtual events, right? People show up. Like if you just look at the hard metric, you would just do that. But there's something there, right, with the IRL. So just don't know to solve it. But if there's anyone in the chat that might even have success with that, I would love to know.
I would love to hear from Chad as well. Mm-hmm. I will give my answer quickly and then hand it over to Derek because I know his perspective here is going to be invaluable. Great question, Dion. What we are working towards measuring is for people who have RSVP'd for an event. We basically do a cohort analysis where we take the audience of everyone who's ever RSVP'd versus the audience of everyone who has never RSVP'd for an event. We go into our Salesforce and we compare. Do they demonstrate higher product adoption? Do they demonstrate a lower churn rate? And I know that I'm not blowing anyone's minds with this information necessarily, but what I think is going to be interesting that we're trying to prove is we've started inviting new potential customers or prospects to join events, and maybe do those people become customers after they attend an event? Are they growing the population of the people building a better future with Procore as a result of attending? That's something that's gonna be really interesting to us, and we're just kind of cracking the egg open on doing that for the first time.
It's a lot of work, but and it's you have to involve, especially if you're in a big company, like a bunch of different teams, and you have to get the data team involved, and you might have to get privacy involved, and like it's a tremendous amount of work. But I think the people who put that effort and work in up front and the things that you're going after, I don't have anything to add to that. If people in this call just focused on one of those three things, new customer acquisition, retention or expansion, or at least looked at all of them when they start and then figure out where they're the strongest? Or do you have a great partner on the sales team that's like getting really excited about this, and you can bring them in and create a story together and everybody can win from it? I just, during the pandemic or the post-pandemic, when we started to see all the layoffs and stuff, it was super frustrating to even see like really amazing teams get cut. And, I think looking back on that, I mean, some of it, there were such huge cuts that like so much of it's out of anyone's control. That was one thing that's very different about the last layoffs. But the other thing is like, I think and I put blame on myself as somebody that has tooling in the space, like we did a really poor job at making sure every one of the teams we worked with had clear ROI, identified and distinguished in their program. And if you don't, it's really hard, but if you do the tedious work up front, it can pay huge dividends down the road. And then it's like, we can't cut that. We can't cut, like, look at the value they create and like really putting that in front of people's faces all the time. Let's put more gasoline on the fire. Let's pour more logs on that fire. And so it's, you have to kind of put data right in somebody's face sometimes for them to really get it.
Super, super true. I always talk about trying to prove your community for the money printer that it is.
Aaron, this has been great. We definitely will share the recording. This is the most engaged chat we've had. This is how to 3x your chat should be your next talk, because it's very engaged, and super grateful to have you. We're doing these sessions every month. Actually, the next session, the speaker, and this shame on me, I have not fully confirmed them. It's totally my fault, but it's going to be somebody from Salesforce, I believe, that's running their community there. So we hope you will join for the next event. We'll get that date confirmed here shortly. And Aaron, just thank you for your time and energy in putting all this together and building the deck and sharing your insights. Super grateful for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Derek. This was really special, and I am so grateful to everyone in the chat for participating. I got to ask you for help. Y'all came through big, and I will see you at CMX.
Okay. See everybody in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.